SmartB Sports Update Podcast is brought to you by Optimum CBD. For all your rest and recovery needs, CBD products are your best bet. Go to optimumcbd.store to order now. Free delivery on all orders over $99. You must be over 18 to order. I use Optimum CBD products personally for my rest and recovery. I train 6 days a week in Jiu-Jitsu, as you've probably heard on the SmartB Sports Update Podcast. I teach, I train, I compete. And without Optimum CBD products, I wouldn't be able to do it. Optimum CBD for all your rest and recovery needs. We can continue the conversation about the ridiculousness of how they have broken the entire game with their... Not a crackdown, though. They've been cracking down on the head-high shots. If you saw Andrew Abdo with Braithen Astor, there hasn't been a crackdown. There's been no instruction from the NRL to crack down on the high tackles and increase the number of sin bins. It's just coincidence, and they've had for the past 50 years rules against hitting people in the head. Coincidentally, over the weekend we had 18 sin bins, and we were just discussing before we started 18 inconsistent sin bins, and charges that have come out, none more ridiculous than Satili Tupouniua's double charge, which is the only words that can be used to describe it, a farcical.
Yeah, absolutely farcical. As you mentioned, 18 players sin binned across the round. I did a column on it, which went up on our website yesterday. So 18 sin bins, that was one more than the previous two rounds combined. But even more extraordinarily, it was the same number of sin bins that we had across the first 5 rounds of the comp. So we had the same number of sin bins in one round, round 8, as we did across the first 5 rounds of the competition. Now, out of nowhere, they've just decided they're going to start sin binning everybody. It's ridiculous. Everybody you talk to is not happy about it. The fans aren't happy about it. The coaches aren't happy about it. The players aren't happy about it. Andrew Abdo comes on with his spin doctoring on TV. But you sort of go, well, obviously, this has come from Andrew Abdo and Peter V'landys. Obviously, they put pressure on the refereeing department to put this into practice.
Yeah, we said they didn't, but just out of nowhere, suddenly... that's an interesting statistic, right? So the first 5 rounds, you had less than 18 sin bins.
It was 18 across the first 5 rounds.
The next 2 rounds, you had 17.
17, yep.
So there's an increase there already.
Yep.
And then the next round... It's
just exploded.
Yeah. If Andrew Abdo and Peter V'landys didn't organise it, who decided that?
Yeah, well, obviously it's come from them. They put pressure on the refereeing department. Now, it all started on Thursday night. It was 3 Bulldogs players sin bin. It wasn't just them. A Broncos player was sin bin as well, Dean Mariner. But the 3 Bulldogs players sin bin were Satili Tupouniua. Now, the interesting thing about Tupouniua, we were just talking about it, he got sin bin for the shoulder charge, but the knee lift, which was way worse, was just, no sin bin for that. Josh Curran was sin binned as well. Marcelo Montoya was sin binned. Marcelo Montoya's one, I'll tell you what, to talk about falling into it, I think Kickow made a tackle down low on the Broncos player. It might have been Piakura. I think it was Piakura. And Piakura's dead set completely fallen into Montoya. Now, I'm not using it as an excuse. The Broncos were clearly the better team. They were up 34-0 after 32 minutes. I'm not excusing the loss at all here. The Broncos thoroughly deserved their victory, obviously. But Gerard Sutton, the referee in Thursday night's game, he was determined, as Gerard Sutton always does, he's determined to make it all about him. When Gerard Sutton's refereeing, it's got to be the Gerard Sutton stage show. It's all about Gerard Sutton. He loves the sound of his own voice. He loves his voice being heard on the ref's mic. And so we got the Gerard Sutton stage show performance on Thursday night.
I don't know if we discussed it in last week's podcast, but I've been saying all week since Reece Walsh was out, the Broncos would look better.
Yeah.
And they did, and it's like the Bulldogs forgot how to play, and as you said, it set the tone for the whole round. Like, Tupouniua, he's shoulder charge didn't warrant a sin bin.
No.
Right? But they sin binned him anyway. And then he did that flying knee knockout that would have been...
Yeah, and then kneed him again.
Wouldn't have been out of place in the UFC, you know,
Yeah.
for the heavyweight title championship of the world. Yeah. That gets a penalty. They got a penalty, yeah? Yeah, got a penalty. And nothing, like off we go, not even on report, yeah? And then the match...
Yeah, he was later cited, but not on report in the
match
first
review
instance.
committee decided, we probably better punish that one. And so... on Thursday night, not only did we get a ridiculous number of sin bins, and yeah, the Montoya one, like, Friday, all anybody who follows rugby league was talking about, and all the media was talking about, was that Marcelo Montoya sin bin was ridiculous, and the fact that Tupanua didn't get sin bin for the flying double knees was ridiculous, right? And then, as it happens, new games are coming up, so we forgot about it, right? We were talking about the Bulldogs-Broncos game and the inconsistency and ridiculousness in the sin binning and the referee. Yeah. But then it continued in whatever the next game was. What was the next game?
Your Dragons against the Roosters.
In which Sandon Smith got sin binned in the second half.
Yes.
But what arose in that was there was a bunch of penalties given for high shots, and no one was getting sin binned. When Montoya the night before had got sin binned for the softest high shot in the history of the world.
It's just the Montoya one. I know and I think it's an overused term in the game that he fell into it, right? And it is overused. But if you look at the Montoya one again, there was literally nothing he could have done about it. Nothing. The guy literally falls into his shoulder. If you have a look back at the vision of it, Montoya literally couldn't do anything else. So, all right, if you're going to penalise it, but don't send him to the sin bin.
Yeah, well,
that's just ridiculous.
Any contact with the head or neck is a penalty because the onus is on the tackler to avoid getting hit in the head, and falling into it is never deemed a worthy excuse, right? That's what happens. So even, there was the argument in Origin last year where Reece Walsh was falling into Suolii's shoulder. That's what made it worse, right? Doesn't matter. Contact to the head or neck, that's a penalty. Montoya's one was a penalty. But he got sin binned. And it was ridiculous. And no one could believe it at the time. As I said, all Friday, from Thursday night, all Friday, that's all anyone could talk about, really. The inconsistency and the sin binning. Tupanua getting sin binned for his shoulder charge and not his knees. Montoya getting sin binned for the world's softest high shot. And then then we got around to the Roosters Dragons, and we were expecting, you're expecting some sin bins, actually. And there was only the one. And there was multiple high shots that were as bad or worse than the Montoya one. So everyone is sitting there going, Friday after the Friday game between the Dragons and the Roosters, all the chatter became, well, that was a bit weird. Like, Montoya got sin binned. No one in the Dragons and the Roosters, I think Connor Watson Sandon Smith got sin binned in that one. Yeah, Sandon Smith. Yeah. But those high shots that happened in the Dragons and Roosters game were way worse than Montoya's one, and no one got sin binned. That's a little bit weird. And then the Warriors Knights game came around, and that's what really kicked it off. That's when
because we had Murata Niukore was sin binned in the first minute, and then only 3 minutes later at the fourth minute, Leo Thompson gets binned.
And their ones in the first and fourth minute, again, their sin binnings. And then nothing happened to anyone else for the next 76 minutes. But there was high shots that were worse, definitely worse than Montoya's. So you really, by Friday, you're 3 games into the round. I mean, everybody is, after the Friday, that game, everyone's sitting there going, what on earth is going on? And then the Storm and Rabbitohs game came around. There was enough confusion about after the Warriors game, but the Storm and Rabbitohs game with Latrell Mitchell and Ryan Pappenhausen getting sin binned again. And again, players doing high shots that were worse than the Montoya one and other ones throughout the weekend that had sin bins. And it just continued all weekend. It was I was telling you before the podcast, I saw a video of Andrew Johns talking specifically about that. There was a Panthers, I think it was Paul Adamoti. Oh no, maybe Scott Sorensen. It wasn't. It was a Panthers Sea Eagles game where the ball return off, the kickoff was running off the back fence, going 1,000,000 miles an hour. The Panthers had 3 players closing to shut him down. When a guy is running 30 kilometres, a 100 kilo person is running 30 kilometres an hour at you, you brace yourself, you get ready, you don't, So whoever it was, Scott Sorensen or whatever, had two choices, right? He can brace himself and put his shoulder in the way, and the two players around him will support him. That's what he did. He actually did the right thing. Incidental contact to the head, player got up and played ball. But if he had tried to close his arms around him with the two players next to him, there was a high chance of break or dislocation of arm, possible pec tear, that kind of thing. If he had gone down for the legs, high chance of getting kicked in the head, Tupanua style.
Yeah.
So he did the right thing. Incidental contact to the head, yes. Penalty, all right, fair enough. Cool. But that was it all over. That was the one that Andrew Johns used to sum up the weekend. And I really liked the video I watched because you're not allowed to hit people in the head. And in the Andrew Johns video, he was going on about how, it shouldn't have even really been a penalty. But yeah, it should be a penalty. Every time someone gets hit in the head, it's a penalty. Problem is, I've gone over this before. Every single bloody tackle these days there's contact around the head and neck, whether when they're on the ground, the arm slides up. But swinging or impact contact to the head requires a penalty. Very few of the ones over the weekend required a sin bin, and all it did was ruin the games.
Yeah, I mean, it's just what are Peter V'landys and Andrew Abdo? What are they doing here? I mean, the problem with crackdowns is they never stick to them. You can guarantee that 18 players have been sin bin in round 8, and I mentioned it in the column. By round 12, this will not be happening. It won't be. So what's the point of all this then? We know that they're not going to stick to this. And I talked about it as well in the column that, there was a time there for a long time, you'd remember, it was up until very recently, that they didn't use the sin bin for high tackles. Well, all that would happen with a high tackle would be, there'd be a penalty, you'd be placed on report, and it'd have to be really, really, really bad to get sent off. And that rarely happened. So you had a farcical situation where you'd have a player hitting another player high in a tackle, in a bad high tackle, and staying on the field. But yet somebody who commits a professional foul, like holding down too long in the tackle or, holding someone out of play who doesn't have the ball or something like that, would be sent to the sin bin for a minor offence like that. But people who committed high tackles would stay on the field. And that was a farce. So they finally worked out, hang on, we can use the sin bin for high tackles and that sort of thing. So that made sense to do that, but now they've just gone way too far with it. Whatever happened to, penalty sufficient? Just, if it's not a bad high tackle, just give a penalty. If it's direct, forceful contact, then send them to the bin. But for the minor ones, just give a penalty. It's not rocket science.
You can actually make an argument for a systemised approach. When you talk about, the player getting taken out, Michael Crocker on Brett Stewart, in the grand final. It ended Manly's chance of winning the grand final, right?
Yeah.
Michael Crocker stayed on the field, yeah. There is a formula they could use like that where high tackle, again, you're not allowed to do it. It's against the rules. No pundit, media person, you see some of them going, game's gone soft, that's not even worth a penalty. Look, it's against the rules to hit them in the head. So it is worth a penalty 100% of the time, right? If the player gets hit in the head and has to go for a HIA, 10 minutes. There's a sin bin. It's a bad enough one that both teams are now penalised. If the player is knocked dead like Reece Walsh, that guy didn't even go for a HIA in the Origin. He was like, that guy, he's gone. He's out for the game. You're off.
Yeah.
That's it. At the time with the Origin, a lot of people didn't agree with the send-off of Suoli. Kind of hurt the game. And, they go, they ruined Origin and all that kind of thing. But that's a fair formula, and you would also be able to apply consistency.
Yeah.
Instead of Montoya accidentally slapping someone in the face, that person getting up and continuing to play, and him getting sin binned, and then Tupanua doing a flying double knee, looks like something out of a video game, the Street Fighter video game or something.
It was like the Karate Kid or something.
Like that. And you just carry on, brother, carry on.
Yeah. And, I agree with, as I've said before, I agree with the idea of using the sin bin for for high shots and that sort of thing, and you know, dangerous tackle, like dangerous throws, that sort of thing, because what the sin bin, and I said this as well in the column, is that what the sin bin does is it provides a nice middle ground in the sense that it's not sending the player off for the rest of the game, so you don't completely ruin the team's chances of winning, the team that has the players sent from the field. It's only 10 minutes, so you don't ruin their chances of winning the game. But that having been said, you do rightly sanction the offending player and his team, and you award an advantage to the other team, obviously, by letting them have an extra player for 10 minutes as compensation for the act of foul play.
Exactly.
So the sin bin provides that nice middle ground. It does. But you've got to apply it in the right way and not just sin bin everybody for the sake of it, not just sin bin 18 players in a round. You just go, all right, if it's minor contact to the head, penalty sufficient. It's got to be serious contact to the head for it to be a sin binning. Direct, forceful contact. Not just sin binning anybody who touches someone in the head.
If they want to go down the road of sin binning every single high contact tackle, then they also should be sin binning every single high contact tackle. The way they are deciding the sin bin is so random and hard to understand. I can understand it's not a black and white rule, but still, when you have things like that Montoya one that set a weekend, and then other ones throughout the weekend, that there was way worse ones throughout the weekend that weren't sin bin. Not to say I wanted those ones to be sin binned, but it goes to show how the Montoya one wasn't worth a sin bin. If you're going to say the Montoya one was worth a sin bin, then every single one is a sin bin, and we'll just end up with 3 players on the side, like for 10 minutes. Like if you really want to manage it properly, because it all comes back to the core. I was listening to Jordan Peterson actually recently talking about how every argument loses its track because everyone worries too much about too many things when everybody should concentrate on the core. The main issue with rugby league, number one complaint, is inconsistency. And they created this situation over a round of football where it was inconsistent in the worst possible way with ridiculous sin bins. And sin bins, over-the-top sin binning, ruins the game. So when you have that much inconsistency, they may as well have sin binned everyone, because at least it would have been consistent. It would have ruined the game.
But that is, in itself, that's the problem with the mass sin binnings, is that if you are going to be consistent, you end up with 3 on 3, as you said.
It would have been more, it would have been stupider, but at least it would have been consistent. Because every single time there was a penalty whistle blown, the penalty noise for high tackle, every single person watching every single game over the weekend after the second or third game on Friday was, that could be a sin binning, but maybe it won't be.
Yeah.
Nobody, you couldn't go, that one's not worth a sin bin.
Yeah. But that's the whole problem with it, isn't it? You've touched on it right there, is that the whole issue with what they've done on the weekend in round 8 is that if they are going to be consistent with that, you'll end up with 3 players on 3. And that's just ridiculous.
Stupid.
So given that you can't possibly, hold to this with consistency, it's not sustainable.
Surely that should be the question they ask, right? What would happen if we were consistent with this? Go back and look at the games over the weekend, as referees and Andrew have to. Go back and look at every single game over the weekend and go, all right, consistent sin binning for every time somebody touches someone else in the head. Get a piece of paper. Go all right, that player off 10 minutes on the first minute. All right, third minute, another player off. 7th minute, another player off. And see where you end up, at what extreme you would get to. And then go, guys, if we were consistent with this, which should also be our aim. We should always be our aim. It'll make the game stupid, so we just shouldn't do it. Let's work out a way that we can consistently use the sin bin for high shots. And I'm not saying the suggestion I made 10 minutes ago that I made up off the cuff of nothing happens, player gets up and play the ball, penalty, required HIA, sin bin, immediate off is send off. But that's a more consistent thing, and you can you can sit down and watch a bunch of games and go this is what would happen, see how it would affect the game. You wouldn't get how many HIAs are there again? Oh, yeah. 1 or 2, at most. That's an extreme one. You have to get 2 injured players through foul play to activate the 18th man, and the 18th man's only been activated like once this year or something. So you can see how little sin bins would be used, really, or send-offs for the extreme. But at least it'll be consistent. And again, go back and look at... You have years of data of games. When you're going to come up with this kind of crackdown, go back and look at a bunch of games. Watch a round of football and see... Write down. All right. Like when they did that stupid other one, the ruck one a few years ago, I think when Todd Greenberg was in charge, that lasted 2 games, 2 rounds. All they had to do was say, mate, we probably shouldn't do that because it'd be 40 penalties a game.
Yeah. This is the whole problem. You just touched on it there. This is the whole issue with crackdowns, is they never stick to it. So then you go, well, why are the crackdowns happening? And I suspect it's just because there's some bright spark in an NRL HQ who's gone to Volandis and Abdo and said, oh, here's an idea, we can do this. It's people justifying their jobs. It's people going, oh, what can we do differently? Oh, this is something we could do. They're changing something that doesn't need to be changed because they're trying to justify their jobs.
Yeah, what is the motivation? And they come out afterwards, Andrew Abdo on that show last night. Was it last night?
I think he went on NRL 360 and he also went on 100% footy on Channel 9.
The one with Braithen Astor is the one I saw.
Yeah, NRL 360, yeah.
To come out the next day after the round when everyone has obviously been complaining about it since Thursday and say, no, we didn't do a crackdown, it's been against the rules for 50 years, then what changed in that you can have 17 sin bins in the first 5 rounds, 18 in the next 2 rounds and 18 in the 1 round afterwards? Who made that decision? If it wasn't Andrew Abdo, if Andrew Abdo and Peter Volandis didn't go to the rest and say this, why aren't they going to the rest and saying, who made that decision?
Yeah.
What idiot thought this was a good idea?
I think
he's not allowed to make decisions again.
No, that's right. I think, and I know crackdowns have happened. Again, I'm 37, so I've been watching the game for the last 30 years. I can't really comment on what happened before that, but in the last 30 years, this happens all the time. We're going to crack down on this, we're going to crack down on that. The crackdown lasts for 3 or 4 weeks and then it's forgotten about, and you go back to how it was before. But what I've noticed since Volandis has been the chairman is it seems to be, he just seems to, I guess, implement these sorts of things on a whim. You know, he wakes up in the morning one day and goes, oh, we should do this today. And then, so as you said, how do you go from 18 sin bins over the first 5 rounds to 18 sin bins in 1 round in round 8? You know, it's just like, how did we take that leap? It's Volandis making these off the cuff decisions all the time, just going with how he feels at any particular moment. I just don't understand that. Just to the referees, just officiate to the rule book. Forget these crackdowns all the time.
Best referee is the one that you don't notice.
That's exactly right, and that's completely the opposite to Gerard Sutton on Thursday night, because he had to make it all about him. He had to stop the game all the time and explain everything to everybody. And so we didn't get a football game on Thursday night. We got a Gerard Sutton stage show. And he thinks he's the main character. He's not. The players are the main characters.
Yeah, I've discussed before, I do refereeing, and it was one of the best advices I've ever got. The referee's job is actually to make the game more interesting for the people watching.
Yeah.
By not interfering too much, not being in the way, making sure that nobody gets hurt. That's pretty much it. If somebody breaks the rules, you do your penalty.
Referees don't even need to talk to the players in theory. Why do they have to talk to them? If there's a penalty, give the penalty.
You know,
but otherwise, leave them alone.
In some jiu-jitsu competitions, organisations, if the player talks to the referee, they get penalised. There was a really funny thing a few years ago that I was, because I think the ADCC rules, which is the biggest one, is if you talk to the referee, you get penalised. One of my friends was fighting, and he's like a robot, 6'4", all muscle, like 100 kilograms of pure muscle, and he was fighting Brian Ebersol, the ex-UFC fighter, in like a jiu-jitsu match. And they were stalking each other, and the referee gave them a warning and said, like, come on, nothing's happening, hurry up, which was part of the referee's job, letting them know that if you don't do something, you're going to get penalised for being boring. That's one of the rules of jiu-jitsu. And Brian Ebersol turns to the referee and goes,
have you seen him, sir? I don't want to touch him. And Friday over Sol got penalised. Because that was it. My mate Sergio was just stalking him like a big scary rodent. I was like, I don't want to touch him, sir. But penalty. And that's the thing, right? One of the things that does bring the referees into the game is the players having whinges. And they should put a stop to that. Like, players... I get approached when refereeing sometimes, and, you know, depending on the organisation, you know, the response is, go talk to the senior ref. You know, go talk to the organiser. I'm not going to talk to you about it. Right, that's it. I've been... on Saturday, I visited a competition. Like, I wasn't there working or refereeing. I just went to watch my son compete. And a guy that I know walked up to me and said, hey, can I just get your opinion on a match? And showed me how you... I was like, yeah, I'll give you my opinion on a match. And I have also had fighters or competitors start chirping at me and arguing with me mid-match. And a lot of the times, the best gyms, the coaches on the sideline will go, just shut up. Just shut up and get on with it. Just shut up. Like telling their competitor, just shut up, stop talking to the ref. Ref doesn't want to be involved. Ref doesn't want to hear from me. Shut up and get on with it. And that's the way it should be. These captains that approach the referee, I mean, Sutton is it's not with Sutton. Sutton is approaching the players, calling players out constantly. But captains and stuff, like Cameron Smith was notorious for it. The extra referee on the field, you know. Him approaching the referees, slowing the... It was a tactic, but they should put a stop to it and just say, you know what, guys, from now on, players aren't allowed to talk to referees. Referees don't need to
it goes both ways, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The referee shouldn't make it a stage show all about them as well.
Yeah, and that's it. Like, that's actually the new rule, guys. Referees don't need to talk to players. Players aren't allowed to talk to referees.
And I've noticed now they've started going back because someone in the bunk has seen some incident that happened 2 or 3 minutes ago.
There was 4 tackles.
So as if the constant stoppages for the bunker looking at tries are not enough, as if the captain's challenge stoppages are not enough, as if the HIA stoppages are not enough. Now we're stopping the game, going back 2 or 3 minutes, looking at past incidents. Like, come on.
Which game it was. There was one this weekend that was 4 tackles later, and the ball had already been kicked.
This is... I think that the problem is the referees are just way too scared of making a mistake. And that's how they approach the game. They approach the game as if to go... Well, gee, I can't miss anything here, otherwise I might lose my job. The problem with that mentality, though, is that means there's so many stoppages that it makes the game unwatchable for the fans.
Yeah, I think they got to remove the bunker's involvement entirely, only used in try-scoring things, and also limit the bunker in, like, to they get to watch it once in slow motion, once in for high speed.
I'll tell you, I'd love it if they just had no bunker.
Yeah, me too.
No bunker. No captain's challenge. If there's a HIA, move the play over, deal with the player on the ground, play the ball and get on with it. Don't stop the game for 5 minutes waiting for the play to come off.
I just really reckon they should stop referees and players talking to each other.
Yeah, and no looking back 2 or 3 minutes at incidents that happened 2 or 3 minutes ago.
You can have, like, it's perfectly done it. I got to give a shout out to the grappling industries in Sydney. We do have an issue, actually, that's quite funny, where some of the gyms are notorious for, like, shouting at the refs and getting involved too much. And that's why at grappling industries, the competition, the rule is for the referees, to protect the referees, to save us, to just say, stop talking to me. I'm not going to reverse my decision. My decision is my decision. Go talk to Nick, who is the organiser. And then they can take their video to Nick, and Nick will often entertain them and go, yeah, okay, I don't care. On your bike ride. They can implement that kind of system in rugby league, okay? They can have a thing where players aren't allowed to talk to refs, and refs don't need to explain themselves to players. And then afterwards, they can let the coach send a video package or a letter or whatever to the referee organisation afterwards, and they can reply and go, this is why I made the decision, or they should go the route of Nick. Shout out to Nick, total legend. Yeah, I don't care, go away. Well, I'm not going to, because they're not going to reverse the decision anyway. So it's no point in complaining.
No.
I know there's a really, like, semi-famous clip where Brad Fittler got Bill Harrigan to reverse his decision once.
Oh, right, yeah, I don't remember that.
Yeah, it was, I saw it. It was, he called for a scrum against the Roosters. It might have even been against the Panthers when Brad Fittler was at the Panthers.
Yeah, right,
And
that's going
Brad
way
Fittler
back.
ran up to him and went, no, this is what happened, blah, 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 and then touched, and and then Bill Harrigan was like, oh, yeah, you're right, okay, actually, scrum for you guys. But I even that, like, that's a comedic thing that happened, and Brad Fittler's a pretty funny guy winning, especially when he's playing. But I don't want that. I don't want the referees, as a watcher, I don't want to have to stop and listen to the referee go, right, number 8, come over here. 8, you've hit him high, and now you're on report,
Yeah.
sit in the bin.
Yeah.
All right, captain guy, go back to your players and tell them.
Yeah, I hate that the most. It's like, either give the sin bin or don't. Don't warn. I hate it when they give captains a warning where they go, oh yeah, guys, we need to just settle it down here. If someone else does something, I'm going to send them for 10. No. Either send them for 10 now or don't say a word. Stop giving these warnings all the time.
There was one game years ago where the referee stopped after like the third penalty or whatever and had the chirp to the captain. And in the post-game press conference, the coach pointed out, we actually wanted to tap and go. We just wanted to go. But the ref stopped the game.
Yeah.
And let them reset the defence.
That's the other problem. By stopping the game all the time and explaining everything, they halt the momentum for the team that's going to get the penalty and is on the attack.
Sometimes they just want to tap and go.
Yeah.
And sorry, come back. I've got to have a chat to the opponent.
Yeah, you got to.
We just did something bad against you.
Yeah, you got to wait for a lecture from Gerard Sutton.
Like that's They just. I wish they would just cancel that contact altogether. Well, soon we'll have AI refs anyway, so that'll be the best.
I wonder what that. Yeah, I haven't even thought about.
Well, we didn't get to it last week because I was in a rush. But you had on the thing with the Chinese marathon.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
So they're coming. All right, the AI refs are coming.
Would AI refs mean less stoppages and you just get on with the game?
You can't argue with it.
All right, bring it on then. Bring it on. Let's get the AI refs.
I was listening to off topic a bit. I was listening to a podcast by some AI guys, and they were saying what they actually do to monitor how close to human AI is how accurate and fast AI can complete a task based on time constraint. So right now, an AI can complete what a human can do in 1 minute. An AI can complete 100% of the time, 50% faster. So it's like a task might be a maths equation or whatever.
So it'll be AI robots refereeing.
Well, they could do either. They could just do AI cameras or AI robots, and then over the speaker, a whistle blows.
Tell you what, I'm sure AI robots would be better than Gerard Sutton.
Yeah, 100%. But they've got to get it to be a 90-minute task, right? How long is it? An 80-minute task. So if they can get an AI to be 100% accurate for an 80-minute human task, then they can...
The problem at the moment is it's not 80 minutes, it's a lot longer because of all the stoppages.
Well, actually, that's true. They need to get it to like 140 minutes sometimes when Gerard Sutton's involved.
Yeah.
Continuing right along, the Rabbitohs... he played in 5/8 this week, right? Mm-hmm. And he's been copped a 1-week ban for dangerous contact in that Storm game.
I'm sorry, he played fullback.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he played fullback.
Against the Storm.
That was he played 5/8 last week, and they got pumped, so they moved him to fullback, taking Jai Gray out of his position. That was it. And he did dangerous contact, and now he's copped a week. He's been back for 2 weeks, and I don't even think his 1 week suspension was fair either. I think that's just reputation and history.
But not fair as in what you think he should have got more or less?
I don't think it was bad enough to be. I think it should have been. If other stuff was a fine, that should have been a fine. I don't like fines. I would prefer all of those guys that got fined got a 1 week suspension, to be honest. But I think his wasn't as bad as the 1 week. Especially when you, again, back to consistency, when you rate it against stuff like Tupanua getting 2 weeks for flying double knee. Is Latrell Mitchell's dangerous contact exactly half as bad as Tupanua's flying double knee?
Yeah. Well, that's right, I guess. But this is the issue with Latrell, isn't it? That there's always something, right? It's if he's injured, then you're sort of sitting there going, he's injured. Oh, when's he coming back? Oh, once he comes back, what sort of shape's he going to be in? And then he comes back, and he gets into a bit of shape, and then he gets suspended, and now he's suspended. He's out for another week. And then if it's not that, well, then it's, he's photographed with a mysterious white powder substance.
Flour, Dan.
Yeah, flour, sorry. Yeah.
On a CD case.
And then something like that happens, and then we don't know, is he going to be suspended? How long is he going to be suspended for? Oh, he's suspended for one game. Oh, is that game going to be served this year or next year?
Yeah.
Are they going to use the All-Stars game? And so we've got this constant circus going on with Latrell. What's he doing? What sort of shape's he going to be in? Oh, he's suspended. Oh, when's he coming back? When he comes back, oh, what position's he going to be playing in? Is he going to be fullback? Is he going to be 5'8"? This is the ongoing circus around Latrell that just continues here.
Look, he's played 2 games this year. Is it 2? Yeah, they got pumped, both of them. He hasn't contributed anything. Was it 2 or 3?
Yeah, so on against the Storm, he had only 75 metres. And this was at fullback as well. He had 75 metres, 9 runs. He only had 1 tackle bust. 1 tackle, 1 missed tackle, 1 penalty conceded. They really need more output from their fullback there, I would have thought.
And he took Jai Gray's... Oh, that's right, he's played 4. So he started in the centres, did no good. They beat the Roosters. Then, after winning, they moved him to 5'8" because of injuries, and they got pumped. And then they took Jai Gray's spot. So not only has he come back, not put enough input in at fullback, he's taken Jai Gray's spot, who was leading the Dally tally at fullback until Latrell came back. I know Latrell Mitchell is a superstar of the game, but as a coach, you have to look at that and go, well, maybe he's best position for our team is not fullback. That's the same as like the Broncos. You know, beginning of the year, my thoughts were that they would struggle because of the Adam Reynolds, Ben Hunt. You know, they're going to be having an issue who is actually in charge of the team. Both of them are senior, but Ben Hunt is older, blah, blah, blah. Both play kind of similar games. And then you chuck the Reece Walsh in, and what's kind of happened to the Broncos that's created inconsistency is when they're at a disadvantage, Ben Hunt and Adam Reynolds are both trying to take over the team, and Reece Walsh has been trying to do the one-man show to try and get them back, and that just doesn't work. What happened this week is you knew who was in charge of the team. You didn't have any one-man show kind of guys. Cobbo was phenomenal at fullback. Obviously, they were never in any adversity, so it's going to take... Reece Walsh is out for 6 weeks. It's going to take like a few weeks. You got to find the Broncos in adversity and see if they can come out of it. But they frankly look better without Reece Walsh in the team. They look the best they've looked all year.
They did, they did. And they
against the best team.
Yeah, they beat the team that was undefeated. The top of the ladder
just
team.
Last week, I was like constantly expressing shock at the Bulldogs against the fact that they were 40 points.
Yeah, well, that before...
And they got 40 put on them.
Before that game against the Broncos, they'd only conceded...
was it 9 points?
They'd only conceded 58 points for the season before that game against the Broncos. And so they were down 34-0 after 32 minutes. And at that stage, you were thinking, well, boy, they could concede more points in one game than they have for the whole season so far. As it turned out, they stopped the bleeding a bit in the second half. The Broncos only scored 8 more points in the second half. But still, at 34-0 after 32 minutes, it was looking like, gee, they could concede more points in one game than they have for the whole season previously. Just getting back to Latrell for a second, though. He's on a $1.1 million a year salary. The Rabbitohs have missed the top 8 in 2023 and 2024. They haven't won a premiership since he's been there in 2020. At some stage, again, it's not just about the player you have, it's about what you're paying for them and how much of your salary cap they're taking up. He's taking up $1.1 million a year of their salary cap, and we keep getting this circus act every year with him.
Well, that's what I mean when I say, like, it's at that point where you've just got to look at it and go, he's not the best fullback they have. Jai Gray is. They go better with Jai Gray at fullback. Jai Gray goes better when Jai Gray's at fullback. He's a centre pairing of Latrell Mitchell and Jack Whiten is pretty good. And he's definitely not a half. So if you want to play Latrell, it's got to be in the centres. Yeah, it's a $1.1 million centre. He's getting overs for a centre. But, you think like what position... He's going to get picked for Origin probably. What position will he play in Origin? It's not going to be fullback.
That's the thing. You talk. I speak to people about this often. Oh, is he worth it? And they go, oh yeah, Latrell's great. Latrell's Latrell's one of our best players. You got to keep him, but people never think about but if you had that $1.1 million spare, you could be spending it. You could get 3 other really decent players for that money, and if you had those 3 other decent players, well, how would you be going then? You wouldn't have this circus going on all the time. Nobody thinks about it like that. They go. They say, oh, Latrell's great. It's great to have him in the team. He's a star. Nobody thinks without him we'd be able to spend that money on other players, and maybe overall, all things being equal, we'd be in a better position.
Yeah, it's like you don't know what to do with him, really. I think even Wayne Bennett doesn't know what to do with him. The chopping and changing of his position isn't going to help. I know they have injuries and all that kind of stuff. This week, Jack Whiten's in the halves. Injuries and suspensions, but he's never delivered on his paycheck and his potential, and his stats are just getting worse.
Yeah, well, I pointed it out just before his stats in that game against the Storm, but yeah, you mentioned it, just this constant changing of positions. He's played centre, 5/8 and fullback in 4 games. He keeps being moved around. It's got to cause some level of disruption. How would Jai Gray be feeling? Again, up until a couple of weeks ago, he was leading the Daly M at fullback. And now to accommodate the great Latrell, he's had to vacate his position at fullback. The guy who was leading the Daly M's up until a couple of weeks ago. And now Latrell's been suspended again. So now they've got to reshuffle they've got to shuffle the deck chairs again.
Goes back to fullback where he belongs. You know. Yeah, it's
and now and Lewis Dodd as well. He's yeah. So I've got it somewhere.
Like players, it seems.
Yeah. So Lewis Dodd, he's been named in New South Wales Cup, despite South being without Cody Walker and Jamie Humphries, and Latrell being suspended. So this huge money signing that they've got from the Super League, Lewis Dodd, now his confidence is shot. He's been put back to New South Wales Cup. Wayne Bennett said in that game he played against the Bulldogs after the game, Wayne Bennett said, oh, look, I won't hold, because he came off the bench and he went on when the game was well and truly over. Wayne Bennett said, oh, look, I won't hold that against him because he's gone on when we had no chance of winning. But since then, Wayne Bennett's done everything to dent his confidence, and now he's going to be playing in the halves in New South Wales Cup with Josh Schuster. So
I think Wayne Bennett just doesn't like British players.
Well, they signed him before Wayne Bennett joined. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
And yeah, so he said Jai Gray's now he's back at fullback for this one game while Latrell's suspended for one game, and then Latrell will come back and we'll watch Jai Gray going to do then.
We're back to the bench.
Yeah, so this is just Latrell's just disrupting the whole team.
They're sitting 11th right now. Man, it's so weird to have Panthers down the bottom. But
and now Jack Whiten's at 5/8.
Yeah.
For this game against the Knights.
Who knows what the Rabbitohs are going to do? They're in a rebuilding phase. How long's Wayne Bennett's contract? 2 years, right?
I think it's 3, but I'll check that. I will check that, yeah. But yeah,
I think this year is basically rapidly becoming a write-off for the Rabbitohs.
Yeah, well, it is. It's a 3-year deal for Wayne Bennett. Yeah, so he'll be there till the end of 2027.
Write-off, and then next year they'll push it through to next year and say that's we're rebuilding. I reckon they're going to release Lewis Dodd.
I think if it were up to Wayne Bennett, he would.
Dragons would take him for sure, surely.
Yeah, I'd say they probably would. Yeah.
And he's not a bad player,
Well, he deserves more of an opportunity, especially given the players they've got out. I think it's really harsh on him to be having him in New South Wales Cup when you've got Cody Walker out injured, Humphries out injured, Latrell suspended, and Lewis Dodd can't get a gig. I think that's very harsh.
He's super young and he's won a premiership in Super League. Take go to the Dragons, bro. Now we've touched on it.
Yes,
the Bulldogs. It was like the Bulldogs had forgotten how to be the Bulldogs in their game with the Broncos, and so 3 of them have been suspended Matt Burton, right?
Yeah, Matt Burton's gone for a week. Josh Curran's gone for 3 weeks, and we've touched on it. Satili Tupouniua, with those 2 charges, he's gone for 5 weeks.
It's crazy what happened, what unfolded at that. Was it you watch it and you think like, were the Broncos that good that they broke the Bulldogs for the week?
This is the issue. Is we got to look at the teams that the Bulldogs have beaten. Now they've beaten the Dragons, the Titans, the Eels, the Sharks, the Knights, the Rabbitohs, and then they come up against the Broncos and they get towelled up. So there are going to be people who say, well, before that game against the Broncos, you haven't really played against a genuine contender there, and then you've come up against a genuine contender and you've just been hammered. You were down 34-0 after 32 minutes, and I'll be consistent. The game was over at that point. The rest of the game does not matter. Who cares that the Broncos only scored 8 points in the second half? Because they had the game wrapped up at halftime. Yeah. So nobody cares. It doesn't matter that they held the Broncos to 8 points in the second half.
No, it doesn't.
The Broncos had the game wrapped up.
The people who claim that's a thing, as a thing, are the people who are grasping at straws.
No, that's ridiculous because it's just human nature. It happens all the time. Teams who get the game won by halftime, they clock off in the second half. It's just human nature. That's what happens.
You gotta think like, talked about the fortune of Mitchell Moses coming back, perfect time to screw over the Tigers last week. This perfect timing for Selwyn Cobbo to take over at fullback at the Broncos and the Broncos be able to do that to the Bulldogs, who were leading all year and hadn't lost a game and, hadn't let in more than 10 points in the game.
Yeah, and to put on a team that before that game were conceding less than 10 points a game on average. Yeah, and then they put 42 on them.
Like the fortunes of Selwyn Cobbo to take the fullback spot in that game.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's one thing to lose one game. Look, it is only one game. We won't get, I don't think we're going to get too carried away. But it's a costly loss with the players who are now suspended. Matt Burton's gone for a game. Matt Burton's gone for a game. He'll miss that game against the Titans in Magic Round. And they've lost Curran and Tupouniua for longer. Curran's gone for 3 weeks. Tupouniua is gone for 5 weeks here. Now, look, they play the Titans on Sunday. I would like to think that they will win that one. You would hope so.
Yeah, the tips this week are crazy. I was complaining about it. The Bulldogs and Titans is the longest odds. That's the only game that's super
But this
easy
is the thing. If the Titans are going to get them, this is the time to get them. Without Burton, Tupouniua and Curran...
Yeah,
this is my paranoid fan side coming out of it.
You know what? Out of the rest of the teams in the comp, I was thinking, if it was any other team other than the Titans, I would have a little bit more worry, even if it was the Eels. But I just
with Moses back,
I just can't see the Titans in their current state, which Des Hasler needs probably another 30 years to fix.
And he has dropped David Fifita. Yeah. We will get to that.
Being able to exploit a bit down-and-out Bulldogs. I just don't think they're capable.
Well, look, that's the thing. I hope you're right.
The odds are so long.
The Bulldogs just need to get a win in that game without all those players. Burton is only 1 week. If they can get a win against the Titans, then Burton comes back, and they can, to a degree, they can probably cover Curran and Tupouniua until they...
Well, they've got...
But Burton's the main issue, I think. I know they won games without him earlier in the year, but, together with Tupouniua and Curran being out, that's a building list of absentees.
They've got a difficult game next week against the Raiders.
Yes, in Canberra. So that'll probably present more of a test without... Well, Burton will be back for that game, but they won't have Tupouniua or Curran.
Yeah. But maybe the Raiders will die now because Fogarty's signed with Manly.
Yeah, he has, so...
Well, we've got to wait 10 days, but yeah.
Yeah, a good pickup for Manly. Absolutely a good pickup.
Yeah.
And... That they needed it because that plan that people were throwing around of Turbo moving to 5'8" and Luke Brooks to halfback, that just... Luke Brooks is not a halfback. He's not a go-to half. He's not... Yeah, he's not someone who has great influence over the results. So they needed Fogarty, they needed to land Fogarty, Manly, and they have. And I think it's a good signing for them.
What did he sign for?
Let's have a look here.
Surely he signed for $1.3 million or more.
Let's just have a look at that. Ricky's not going to be happy about it. It's a 3-year, $2 million deal. That's good value. I think that's good value.
Yeah, Canberra offered a 2-year deal worth around $1.3 million, so $650K, and he took the extra year.
That's perfect for Manly. That's as good. He's in the team that's going gangbusters in the top 4.
Yeah,
and he signed on for $2 million for 3 years, so it's $650 a year. Yeah.
Well, he got offered $650 at both, but
they gave him an extra year. I think that was worth it.
He's a better manager.
How can Dylan Brown be getting $1.3 million a year and Fogarty be getting $650 a year?
Brother, sorry, but whoever your manager is, you got to go get Isaac Moses.
I mean, I know he's 31, but still, 31's not that old. 31, you can offer a 31-year-old a 3-year deal these days. Look at Cherry-Evans, is 36 and still playing.
Yeah.
Canberra are third on the ladder at the moment.
Yeah.
And he's... So this is a really good buy for Manly.
He really needs to go get a better manager. Speaking of managers.
Yes.
Lachlan Galvin was recalled, being named again, and they ended up winning that horrible, horrible game.
Yes.
But he's suing the club.
Yeah.
This is Isaac Moses is suing the club on behalf of Lachlan.
But this is the issue. This idea, there seems to be this notion out there that because they won one game that this all goes away. But no. He, as you said, he's suing the club. So this doesn't go away. It may go into the background for a week now because we've had this sin bin frenzy that's taken over all the headlines. But all that has to happen is for them to start losing a few games again, and this is going to bubble back to the surface.
Is he no longer being bullied?
That's the thing. Well, there were people saying that, because he was smiling and everything on the field, that means, he's no longer being bullied, and so this all goes away. But the problem is this complaint relates to past behaviour. And it's those social media posts from Jerome Luai and Sunia Taruva.
Isn't bullying like continued behaviour? So there's a quick turnaround of the bullying there. I'm getting more and more and more into the camp of Lachlan Galvin is just... He's basically, to me, like showing all signs of a cult member that is letting his cult leader do whatever they want in his name.
Yeah.
You know? Like, it just... Obviously, we've talked about it at length for the past 3 weeks.
Yeah. It's nice to only have one Galvin item on the rundown today.
Well, 2 weeks ago we had 15.
Yeah.
But obviously Isaac Moses is the architect of all this, and like it's just, it smells like cult leader type behaviour, you know, like where the cult leader is doing whatever he wants in the person's name. But
this is the issue for him, is that if he's doing this to one club, he might do it again to the next club, and that's what the next club have to be, mindful of here. And I don't think that I think this is different to the Cherry-Evans story, because Daly Cherry-Evans is a premiership winning halfback. He's a Clive Churchill medal winner. He's played over 300 games. He's a Queensland and Australian representative over a long period of time as well. It's not just a few games here or there. He's played a lot of games for Queensland and Australia.
Again for Queensland.
So I felt the circus around Cherry-Evans was justified. I don't think the circus around Galvin's justified insofar as his ability as a player. Obviously, it's blown up because of the circumstances around it.
Well, that's Isaac. Again, I just lead it back to Isaac Moses' connections and his ability to get it in the media that much. Surely, part of it comes to that. Because...
Yeah, and the dossier against the coach and all that. That was why it blew up so much.
Leaks, that's what I mean. Like Isaac Moses, all those leaks. Obviously, Tigers are the unnamed source. They should rename the clubs of the West's unnamed sources. But
I just have this massive suspicion that Isaac Moses is the vast majority of the unnamed source when it comes to Lachlan Galvin. He's got contacts in the media.
Yeah.
Like I said the other day, I think that he was probably the one that leaked that, the RLPA and the two players nonsense. That ended up being false and then not false, and even then, I just have this suspicion, could be totally unfounded, that even the stuff like the RLPA, the RLPA was reaching out to the Tigers over one of those two players. Was it not the Isaac Moses managed one, the other one, reaching out to them of their own accord? Like, nobody had reported any issues, but they were reaching out to check up on him anyway. It's clear to me that somebody had reported to the RLPA, you need to go and ask the Tigers about this player as well. And I can only think that stuff is coming from Isaac Moses' camp, because he hates Benji Marshall and the Tigers.
Yeah, and then you sort of got to look at it and you got to go, I've got to be honest, there's part of me that thinks, again, Galvin's only on 250 this year, he's on 350 next year at this stage, and obviously things can change. Obviously things can change, but at this stage, he's going to be staying at the Tigers until the end of next year. So is the next club, who are probably going to have to pay over $1 million a year for him, it's probably going to be Parramatta, are they going to get value for money? That's the thing. It's not, I'll say it again, it's not just about who you buy, it's about how much you have to pay for them, how much of their salary cap are they taking up, and will you get value for that money? Those are the questions you have to ask yourself. And again, Lachlan Galvin, he's in his second year of first grade this year. Last year, when he didn't have Jerome Luai with him, the team finished last. And I know he was in his first year of first grade, but they still finished last. It's not like they came 10th or 11th or something and showed some sort of potential. They came last.
Well, he didn't improve the team.
That's right. So if you're going to pay over $1 million a year for him, well, are you going to get value for money? Maybe, after it's all said and done, maybe the Tigers might dodge a bullet by not having to pay him the over $1 million a year. Because largely he's unproven at this stage. Yes, he plays well. He played well on the weekend. They won that game.
It's an awful game, though.
But, if you're going to spend over $1 million a year, that's a huge investment to make in an unproven teenager.
Speaking of that game, I think it was really funny when it went into Golden Point, and everyone's just every single time, every hit up, just thinking, man, I hope that's not a sin bin. Man, I hope that's not a sin bin. Man, I hope that's not a sin bin. Because it would have ended the game with a penalty. In the end, the game ended with a penalty. But it wasn't a sin bin. But yeah, it's he didn't win the game. He didn't close out that game.
No.
They won on the back of a penalty. It was a penalty for I can't even remember. Mm-hmm. And some people are saying that there's news reports today where people have highlighted the fact that on Terrell May charge down on Nico Hines' field goal, he was well offside at marker, and that should have been a penalty, and that would have given the Sharks the game. So
yeah,
Lachlan Galvin didn't even win that game.
No.
He played well, but he didn't. He's not the game closer outer that he's worth $1 million.
Yeah, it's a very messy situation. And it's not solved by winning one game of football. Yeah. It may go into the background, and I think this sin bin stuff has certainly helped with that. The combination.
What happens this week?
The combination of them winning the game and this sin bin madness has helped put that into the background for a week. But all that has to happen is they start losing a few games, and this will come back to the surface. This will come back into focus for the media.
Yeah, and you see that it gets into Golden Point. There's certain players where when your team enters into Golden Point against them, you immediately go into, we're going to lose this now. Like Jonathan Thurston was the classic. I don't even know if the stats favoured him, but when Jonathan Thurston was playing, your team was playing the Cowboys and it went into Golden Point, everyone just went into this fear mode of Thurston's going to clinch this. I don't know if that's true, if he had better Golden Point than anyone else, but that's just the thought. That's the fear he strikes into fans. When the Tigers
he won a grand final in Golden Point with a field goal. When the Tigers
enter into Golden Point, they've got it because they've got Galvin.
No, he's too young. He's too unproven. Yes, highly talented. But again, if you're going to spend over $1 million a year on a player, you need a return on that investment. It's not just about, in this salary cap world that we're in, it's never just about the player you sign. It's about how much of our salary cap are we spending on this player, and if we do spend that amount, will we get value for money? Because ideally, you want to get over the value for money, right? That's what you ideally
salary
want.
cap
I mean, you'll take it if you get the exact, if they play to their price tag, you'll take it. But ideally, you want them playing above their market value. That's how you really... That's how you really know that you've made a good decision. And it's going to be hard for him to play above his market value if he's getting over $1 million a year and he's only his second year in first grade, and he's only a teenager. And when he was on his own and didn't have Luai with him last year, they came last.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. Well, it's Magic Round this week, and there's a big danger that this sin bin nonsense will ruin Magic Round.
Yes.
And that will just push the Lachlan Galvin situation out another week. But once the crackdown ends, what else is you got? I'm sure Lachlan Galvin sitting there in the back of his mind, I hope something else happens.
Yeah, look, if the Tigers had, hypothetically, if the Tigers had have lost that game and the sin bin madness didn't happen, this week would have been similar to the previous 2 weeks where we had, 7 or, well, maybe not 7 or 8, but we would have had 4 or 5 Lachlan Galvin items on our rundown again.
Yeah. Anzac Day.
Yes.
Well, we have Anzac Round. Mm-hmm. We don't have Anzac Day.
Yes.
And Anzac Round started on Thursday when Anzac Day was Friday.
Yes.
It did actually used to be just the Anzac Day games were Anzac Day celebrations, and that made them more special. Like that Dragons and Roosters Anzac Day game was a special thing. I think the Warriors and the Rabbitohs are the other one that's been... It used to be the Warriors and the...
Storm.
Storm and the
Warriors. Yes, it used to be the Storm and the Warriors, but they've since changed that. And now the Storm play the Rabbitohs and the Warriors play a game in New Zealand. They played the Knights in Christchurch on Anzac Day.
I think that, to honour something, you can do too much. And the Anzac Day honour thingy, I don't want to get into the politics of all the... Yeah. Clearly, people aren't honouring the Anzac Day like they used to, because you can honour something too much, and what I feel like they've done with this Anzac Round now is watered down the sanctity of like that Anzac Day Dragons and Roosters match, and they should have stuck with the Storm and Warriors. Because there was actually things about, like, the reason it was the Dragons and the Roosters was because there was actually, like, things with the, the Roosters, there was something to do with, like, Anzacs and all that kind of stuff, like, that, so, like, now we just have Anzac ceremonies before every single game, Australian and New Zealand national anthem before every single game, welcome to country before every single game. Again, I don't want to get into the politics of welcome to countries and stuff like that, and I'm not bagging Anzac celebrations and last posts and welcome to countries and in New Zealand, and I don't mind if they sing the Australian national anthem in some Aboriginal language and the Australian one for the Anzac Day games, and I like the way the New Zealand anthem is in both languages. They want to do that on the Anzac Day game, but now it's like even the ones on Anzac Day, even though there was only like one game on before it where they had all the ceremony, even the ones on Anzac Day felt watered down because, first of all, there was 3 of them instead of 2.
Oh, yeah, I wonder if maybe there were 3 because it was on a Friday. Maybe that had something to do with it. If Anzac Day had have fallen on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, would they have had the 3 games? I'm not sure. I have a feeling maybe there were the 3 in part because it was on a Friday this year. But anyway...
I don't think they should have. There's always 2 games on Friday. Why couldn't they have just stuck to 2 games on Friday? And so Thursday we had all the ceremonies. Friday then we had 3 of them. Then we knew they were coming on Saturday and Sunday again. It just watered it down and made those ones... I have been to Anzac Day games in the past where the Dragons and Roosters were there, and it was like a really solemn, amazing event. But now it just feels like it's too much.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I did do a column about this as well on our website, which I think you put it up yesterday. Yeah, that's right. there's this issue of having these Anzac ceremonies before games that are not played on the 25th of April. The Thursday game was on the 24th of April. The Saturday game was on the 26th of April. The Sunday game was the 27th of April. And you still had these Anzac ceremonies before the game. And I said in the column that if you're going to have Anzac ceremonies on April 24, April 26 and April 27, well, you may as well have them on May the 12th, June the 15th, August the 25th.
Yeah, I love that one. I cackled out loud.
Because, you know what I mean? Because just like May 12th, June 15th and August 25th are not April 25, April 24, April 26 and April 27 are not April 25 either. It should only be on the games on Anzac Day. You have the Anzac ceremony. And why all of a sudden, and I know, of course, we know that New Zealand are a part of the Anzacs. Of course we do. We all went to school. We all learned that. But is it really necessary for the New Zealand anthem to be played before a Roosters Dragons game in Sydney or before a Cowboys Titans game in Townsville? Do we really have to have the New Zealand anthem played before games that are in Australia featuring only Australian teams? All right, I get it. If the Warriors are playing, and if they're playing in New Zealand, yeah, absolutely do the New Zealand anthem. It applies there. It's in place there. It felt out of place to me doing the New Zealand anthem before games in Australia featuring Australian teams. That felt like it was over the top. And not only that, if we go to the other code, the AFL, Collingwood and Essendon, their blockbuster at the MCG on Anzac Day, and we've got the New Zealand anthem being played. This is an Australian-only code. A match in Australia featuring two Melbourne teams, and we're playing the New Zealand national anthem. What's going on here?
How many New Zealanders are in that team? Either of those teams?
I don't think there's many New Zealanders playing for Collingwood or Essendon.
I would hazard a guess that it actually is zero.
Yeah. I don't think.
When years and years ago, when it was just the Australia, the Roosters and Dragons, it was really like a big thing. I've been at games on Wednesdays and Thursdays, like you said. You know, like. This year it just happened to fall on Friday. And they played the New Zealand anthem, and it was fine. But I just think it's because of the overkill, it takes away from the...
Yes.
So one of the ones
the significance is lessened because it's overdone.
And so because it's all overdone, like every little bit of it becomes just silly, actually. Too much. So when you talk about the New Zealand national anthem, it's like, well, now you're just dragging it out. I don't want to get to the football, because yesterday I had to sit through like 15 minutes of this as it was. Now today I've sat through 15 minutes of it, and you've chucked in the New Zealand national anthem, and now I'm going to watch the next game. I'm going to have to sit through this again, and so on and so forth, and the next game, and tomorrow for some reason, and the next day. Like, it makes it so silly. The Anzac Day games, when they were like the Anzac Day games, were really something like special.
Yeah.
And now they're just not special. They're just another game where they've tacked on Anzac celebrations on every game.
Yeah.
It's nothing special now. I remember there was one, it was when Newtown Jets were the feeder club for the Roosters. I went, and there was like 3 games. It was when Jersey, like they would play 3 games in a day back in the good old days. And the Newtown Jets were the only team to not have had to change their jerseys or something during the war. And that was a really big thing. So they wore like their heritage war jerseys and stuff.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff made it a special day. And then apparently they actually had to change their jerseys a few years later when they flew to New Zealand. They lost their logo, so they had to wear Roosters jerseys. It was the first time ever they'd had to wear non-Newtown.
Yeah.
So those little things made it more Anzac-y. But now it's Thursday. Let's do an Anzac celebration.
Yeah. Even though it's not Anzac Day until
Thursday,
Friday.
I had to go to work. It's just, I couldn't wake up for a dawn service. You know, it's just a Thursday.
Yeah, that's it.
The 24th is just a Thursday.
Yeah, of course we appreciate the sacrifices that were made for us to live the free lives that we all live today. We appreciate that. But there's just no need to do it on these dates other than April 25. And I know it's not the same thing. I'm not suggesting for a moment that Anzac Day is the same as Christmas Day. I'm not suggesting that. But what I'm saying is you don't celebrate Christmas Day on Christmas Eve. You don't celebrate Christmas Day on Boxing Day. You don't celebrate Christmas Day on the 27th of December. You celebrate it on Christmas Day.
Actually, a Curb Your Enthusiasm episode about Happy New Year. What is the cut-off time for Happy New Year? Larry David insists it's the 6th. After the 6th of January, you can't say Happy New Year. Well, what's the cut-off day for Anzac Day? I'll tell you, it's Anzac Day.
It's
the 25th.
Yeah.
Like, why aren't they having a celebration this week? Why aren't we doing Anzac dedications?
If you're going to do it on the 24th of April or the 26th or the 27th, you should do it on the 3rd of May, the 4th of May, the 5th of May.
Because it's not Anzac Round? Yeah, there shouldn't be an Anzac Round, sorry. We have Anzac Day for those games. That's exactly it's the whole thing.
Yeah, why is it a round? It's the games on the day. Do it.
Yeah.
Do the service for the games on the day. But that's all that needs to be done.
Definitely.
And when the Warriors aren't playing and there's games in Australia featuring Australian teams, we just have the Australian anthem. We don't need the New Zealand anthem as well. Even though, yes, of course, New Zealand are a part of the Anzacs.
Yeah. But the Melbourne Storm screwed up worse than anyone. This is the second time they've done this, right? So if you remember at the beginning of the year, they announced they wouldn't be doing Welcome to Countries at all before any game, and then a day later they backtracked and said, "Oh no, we didn't. We didn't say that. We're not going to do that." And then apparently they cancelled their Welcome to Country an hour before the game kickoff on last Friday.
Yeah, right. Well.
They paid for the invoices and they'd organised it all, and then just an hour before the game they called them all and said, "Oh no, we're not doing it."
Yeah, I mean, it's a messy handling of it, but you said before, we had to sit through these Welcome to Country ceremonies. I mean, do we really need them at every game like this? I mean, the thing is, this is a football. It's a football game, and I'm really not a fan of Peter Dutton at all, and I don't want to be seen to be, agreeing with him on anything, but, it's Welcome to Country. All right, yeah, do it at the Sydney 2000 Olympics. Do it at the Brisbane Olympics in 2032. But why are we doing it at every football game every week? It's overdone.
Well, it came in years ago. I remember I went and watched the Arias 1,000 years ago, and 2 hours into, I was at live 2.5 hours into the Arias, which was like a 4-hour event. John Butler won an award and did that acknowledgement. I want to acknowledge the Gadigal people and blah 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 blah, all that kind of stuff, right? And I remember that really clearly because it was kind of weird, that. And then I went to some government things because I was working in education at the time, and before every government thing, they had to do the acknowledgement, right? And I was like, all right, fair enough, whatever, government thing. And then over the years, it has become a thing now where I know some businesses do it before meetings. You imagine you're at work and they do it, and it's normally those ultra left-wing, high-level corporate things that are run by they, them, blue hairs and stuff like that. But I honestly don't care, right? I don't care. I don't have an opinion either way. I don't want to get into the politics of it on the Anzac thingy, but the way I figure it is, if you don't want to go to something that does Welcome to Countries, don't go. You don't have to protest them and things like that. I don't believe in protest. All those protesters who protest all this stuff. You can come 20 minutes later to the Welcome to Country, 10 minutes later to the game and miss the Welcome to Country at rugby league games if they choose to want to do it. It's the same as Israel Folau. What's it called? He's anti-homosexuals, and he sued rugby union for firing him for his anti-homosexual stuff, right? If he doesn't like homosexuals, then don't support an organisation that supports homosexuals. That's the thing. If you don't like Welcome to Countries, just don't go. I honestly, sometimes I don't go to stuff because it's going to have Welcome to Countries, not because I disagree with Welcome to Countries. I mean, I go late. I just don't not go. I go late.
That's the thing. Go when it's just about to kick off and you don't have to
because I don't want to sit around waiting
Yeah.
for it. Right? The anticipation is what kills me. the stuff before. I don't like pre-shows and all the.
I guess the other line of argument would be, well, it's a football game, and
the thing is, like, all right, Melbourne Storm wants to do it or doesn't want to do it. What they definitely shouldn't do is organise them and then cancel 1 hour before. And it's since come out that I don't know how much truth there is to this, but the owner of Melbourne Storm is on the board of Advance, which is a really, really, really ultra right wing. Like political influencer party thingy, not a political party, but a political influence organisation that is like on their website is like really anti-welcome to country. And now the conspiracy theorists are coming out that he's messing with them, like he's doing all this. And that's the thing. Like Melbourne Storm are creating this situation in which people are coming up with conspiracy theories that the owner of the Melbourne Storm is part of this organisation that helps welcome to country. So he's purposely doing this like manipulation of doing news releases saying, we're not going to do welcome to countries anymore. And then a week later go, no, a day later, no, we never said that. Or organising a welcome to country an hour before, cancelling it and stuff just to mess with them. And it's like, man, it's a football team. As you said, it's a football team. This is a murky political issue now. Not everything has to be political, but unfortunately too much stuff becomes political. My other belief, like I said, if you don't want to go like welcome to countries and the stuff you like has welcome to countries, you have 2 options. Don't go or come late. However, I also believe once something becomes this political, as the welcome to country has, all sports teams should just step the F out of it and be like, I don't want to play anymore, I'm out. We're not doing it until you guys sort out whether we have to do it. Like, that's it. We're not doing it, we're not having it. We're not going to not have it. We're not just not going to have it. You know, We're not taking a stand against it. We don't know. They should readily come out and admit we don't actually know what's right. Honestly, like we don't know what we're meant to do. So you guys all you political people come up with what everyone has to do, and then we as a rugby league organisation will do it. You tell us you don't have to have them. Oh, you can't have them? We won't have them. You tell us it's our choice. Each individual team will make a choice. You tell us everyone has to have them. We'll do them. But we're not going to do them until you tell us what we have to do. Because all it does is puts people offside. Either way. Like Melbourne Storm have put all these pro-welcome to country people offside. Whereas the rest of the NRL has put all those anti-welcome to country people offside. Yeah.
Yeah, if they don't want to do it, all right, don't do it. But, make your position clear with notice. Don't just cancel an hour before.
The hour before thing is crazy. That's why the conspiracy theories popped up. Oh, he's messing with them. That guy hates welcome to countries and he's messing with them. Sure.
Yeah, and you've organised for people to do it and you've just cancelled an hour before. I mean that whatever your position on it, again, I think it's overdone. I think there's too many of these ceremonies. I think they should be, used very sparingly. As I say, if we've got the Olympics on or something, or the Commonwealth Games, all right, do it. But for every week of football game, no, I don't think they should be on. But you can't go cancelling 1 hour before. If you behave like that, cancelling an hour before, well, people are going to get upset with that. And there are going to be conspiracy theories. Exactly. If that happens. And so the Storm can't then turn around and go, these theories are ridiculous. No. They've created this mess for themselves by cancelling it only an hour beforehand here.
The one of the things about it is like, because it's become such a political thing, people lose sight of the argument, right? There's a whole bunch of arguments on the internet now. Whether you're in America, everyone wants to say, that's only America, but it's very Australia as well, in which people lose sight of the argument. The argument has now become about the origins of the welcome to country. Like, that's the most important thing. Like, it's really important we'd argue about whether Ernie Dengo invented it in 1995 or whatever. Yeah. It's been around forever. And you don't get to welcome me to my country, I'm Australian. And then, no, you're misunderstanding it. You're welcome. There's the country, in the Aboriginal pre-England days, there was 50 countries. Whatever these arguments, I don't follow the non-arguments, right? They're non-arguments, but they just create more divisiveness, right? The argument is actually solely about whether they should be before everything. That's the actual argument. It doesn't matter when things were invented. You know, what's it called? International Women's Day isn't a 250,000-year-old tradition that the Neanderthals did with each other. It's something relatively new, and we have a women in league round that nobody protests. Right? Nobody protests that. If they but the whining about, you know, Andy Dingo invented this in 1990. Why are rugby league teams doing it? Why do we all have to do it? International Women's Day was probably invented in 1990. Why do we have to do that? If your sole determiner for why you do something is how old it is, you're stupid. You really are. Like, you've lost sight of your argument, really, and all it's doing is creating this thing. That's why I just really think once something becomes politicized, all sports should just step out of it completely and say, you tell us what to do. Government, tell us what we have to do, and then we'll do it.
Yeah, you either should do it or you shouldn't do it. You know, what's happened in the past or when it started doesn't really matter.
It's irrelevant. Yeah. Like, it's totally irrelevant. But that's become the argument about Melbourne shouldn't have to do it because it was invented by Ernie Dingo in 1990. Really, that's your argument? Melbourne shouldn't have to do it.
The issue here is not that they cancelled it. The issue here is giving the short notice, only cancelling just before. Cancelling when... the elder who was going to do it, she was getting in the car going to the ground when she got a call from the CEO. That's what I mean.
They lose sight of the argument. The argument is actually, you don't do that.
Yeah.
You don't cancel an hour before.
If they had to come out and done, or you don't need a press conference, just a media release a week before Anzac Day, saying, look, we've decided we're not going to go ahead with Welcome to Country. It's a decision that we've made in consultation with our board. Yeah. These are the reasons, X, Y, and Z. That's it, the end of the matter. The issue here is the manner with which they've cancelled it. It's short notice cancellation.
And, you know, it was so obvious they cancelled it because they didn't want to have people... Because Melbourne is the hotbed right now for it. Like,
and you had that incident at the dawn service.
That's right. They didn't want neo-Nazis. I use the neo-Nazi term, like air quotes, neo-Nazis, because I don't... Everything right now that is politics, whether you're right or left, the other team are the Nazis. So, every of them, right? But the neo-Nazis went to the dawn service, and it's so obvious that Melbourne cancelled it because they didn't want the neo-Nazis going to the game and booing it. It's so obvious. They could have even said that.
Yeah.
You know, they could have even come out, if it was an hour before, called the elder and said, look, this is the reason why. And then gone out to the media and gone, you know, this is the reason why, because that just shows that those neo-Nazis are just idiots as well. As I believe in protests. So.
Yeah, this is a case of PR overthinking.
Yeah, exactly.
That they would have been better off just going ahead with it, and if people had a booed, it wouldn't have been as big a deal as this has been with them cancelling an hour before. Exactly.
Meanwhile, Panthers sit on the bottom of the ladder and the entire internet is celebrating. The memes.
Yeah.
The memes I'm seeing are amazing. Well,
it's
crazy.
Yeah, it's extraordinary.
Is Jerome Luai and Fisher Harris...
Well, their stocks have risen, haven't they, given how Penrith are going without them.
Jerome Luai's only got a 2/5 year contract, right? 2/5, whatever.
There's 3 years of options.
2/5 years. You'd have to think that Jerome Luai is worth like $2.8 million in 2 years, especially if he gets the Tigers off the bottom. Well, if I was him, I would, because he's a social media troll. Yeah, I would be trolling the Panthers and being like, it's so obvious who took you to 4 premierships.
Yeah, well, this is the issue now. With that loss to Manly on the weekend, they're now 2 wins and 6 losses. Now, I had a look at the ladder last year. The eighth place side was Newcastle. They won 12 and lost 12 last year, and they scraped in on for and against. So that 12 wins, 12 losses may not be enough this year. It was for Newcastle last year, but they got in on for and against. So you probably need to win 13 games out of your 24 to guarantee making the 8.
That's the guarantee.
So then to get to 13 wins, they need to win 11 of their last 16 here. And the way they're playing, that's not easy. Well, with every week they lose, their chances of making the 8 diminish.
You know, the thing about them is their defence looks bad and their attack looks bad. They don't have, like, anything going for them right now. Can they turn it around? Yeah, I don't think they can turn it around to win a minor premiership. They can probably get into the 8. I had them finishing higher. You can say they're going through a rebuilding phase, but if I was Jerome Luai, I'd be like, who's the $2.8 million man now?
That's the thing, and people will say, give them a break. They won 4 premierships in a row. Well, that's true for the players who've been a part of all the 4 premierships, but not many of their team now have been part of all the 4 premierships. It's a new team. People have got to remember the 2025 Panthers are different to the 21, 22, 23 and 24 Panthers. It's a different team this year. It's got a different look about it. Not many of the players have played in all the 4 premierships. Obviously, your Dylan Edwards, Nathan Cleary, Isaiah Yeo, Leota, Liam Martin. These sorts of players have, but not many of the team have been a part of all the 4 premierships.
What can happen is a bunch of those guys are going to get picked for Origin either way, and that could play all those guys into form, and then that could turn the Panthers season around. But what also could happen is they could go to Origin, lose Origin, and go back to their clubs and be even worse.
Do you think they make the 8 now? Or
I think they can. Out of any look, if Newcastle can do it on the back of Kalen Ponga winning 10 in a row, I think they can. It's every single week, as you said. It gets harder and harder and harder. They have to win 11 games now out of 16. They can.
If I had to say one way or another, will they make it or won't they make it at this stage? Again, things can change. At this stage, I don't think they'll make it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think they can. I don't think they will today. No. Next week or in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
They string 2-3 wins together, I'll change my mind. They can, but I don't think they will.
But talking today on the Wednesday before Magic Round...
Yeah. No,
I don't think they'll make the 8.
At this point in time, I wouldn't be surprised if they got the spoon with the way they're playing. Even Parramatta looks better than the Panthers right now. You look at the 2 teams and you go, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And it's been really hard, from a tipster point of view, because you've got to tip Penrith every week. But when do you stop? When do we give up as tipsters?
Yeah, well, as a tipster, you got to think, am I tipping this team because of the 4 premierships that were won with other players, not with this team? Or am I tipping the Panthers on what they are in 2025? Yeah. That's the question, and I shouldn't be giving you tipping advice because we are in a tipping competition against each other.
Yeah, they've got to fix the scores for that so we can actually see who's winning, but yeah.
Is there some issue?
There's an issue with the scores. It's counting some of our scores from last year. So.
Right, okay.
It's got to be fixed.
But anyway, I shouldn't be giving you tipping advice. But for tipsters, I would think you have to ask yourself, when it comes to Panthers games, am I tipping them because of what they were over the previous 4 years of winning all those premierships? Or am I tipping them for what they are in 2025?
Well, they're playing the Broncos this week, and this is the first week they haven't been favourites. For the bookmakers as well. That's not when. So
that's the thing. You win 4 premierships, it builds you a lot of credit with the bookmakers.
It's bizarre though. Come out today, Daly Cherry-Evans is $1.03 chance to sign with the Roosters.
Yeah, I wasn't actually going to say the odds because I know I don't know if there's some issue with us saying odds.
We know how to fix that now, so it's fine.
Okay, good. Oh, okay, so we can talk about odds on here.
Well, it's because what happens is it gets flagged sometimes as over 18 content, and then we just remove it, change it back to under 18 content. It's fine. If you go to NRL.com as an under 18-year-old, it has the bloody odds on it. So the fact that sometimes YouTube flags us as over 18 because we mention the exact odds is beyond ridiculous. Although, as we have discussed before, we have been flagged for influence in the American election. So
yeah, that's why I was going to put an item involving our great president on the rundown today, but I didn't because of issues we've had in the past with being flagged.
America votes the way we tell them to. Daly Cherry-Evans is definitely going to the Roosters, 100%. I think we talked about it 2 weeks ago. I had that scoop. Somebody told me it's a done deal, actually.
Yeah, and then we have a look at their situation with their halves. Of course, we've got Sam Walker. They're contracted until the end of 2027. Sandon Smith scored that double in the first half against your Dragons, contracted till the end of 2026. So Walker's 22, Sandon Smith is 22 as well. DCE's 36 here. This is the issue for the Roosters, in my mind. You're going to have to pay a lot to get Cherry-Evans there. You got two very good halves who are very young, in their early 20s there.
They've also got Connor Watson, you know.
Yeah, and look, and I know Walker's got to come back from that ACL injury. He's coming back later in the season.
Being extended as well.
Right, okay. But he will get back.
Yeah.
At some stage this year
they
he'll
will get
back.
rid of Walker because an ACL can change a person completely.
So but he is contracted till the end of 2027.
Roosters will just pay him out and get rid of him. Someone else will give him $1 million.
So you reckon they'll try and shop him around and someone will take him. And then they'll do that deal where they go, well, we'll pay a little bit, you got to pick up the rest until the end of 27.
He's going to be in the Mitchell Pearce situation.
So now we're getting onto that now. So
even then, with him in the Mitchell Pearce situation, he's not in the Mitchell Pearce situation because they were going to let Mitchell Pearce play either off the bench or 6. And they have Connor Watson.
Yes.
Who is a much better bench utility player than Sam Walker. And they're not going to get rid of Sandon Smith. So
you see, my initial thoughts on it were that they would keep Sam Walker, move him to 5'8" to accommodate DCE. But so you think that no, they'll let Walker go and keep Sandon Smith because it's going to be hard to get rid of Sandon Smith on that form he was showing on the weekend.
Yeah, that's why. Because Sam Walker is going to have to come back, rebuild, and there's no. And
you don't know how he's going to go. We hope he goes well, but you don't know how he's going to go.
Blow his opposite ACL.
So now we get to DCE. So DCE, he's not Cooper Cronk. Cooper Cronk went in there at the Roosters and won 2 straight premierships in 2018 and 2019. Do people really think DCE is going to have that impact on the Roosters? DCE hasn't won a premiership since 2011. That's 14 years ago when he was a very young man. Now he's 36 and he's 36 now. He'll be 37 by the start of next season.
And it'll be 15 years since he won a premiership.
Yeah, so do we really think that 37-year-old DCE is going to do a Cooper Cronk and win back-to-back premierships for the Roosters, given that he hasn't won a premiership for 14 years with Manly?
I think they will sign other people to do that for them. They'll sign, a gun forward.
Because that's the thing. I'm not saying that they won't win back-to-back premierships next year and the year after. They could. But it's not just going to be because of DCE. It's going to have to be because of other recruitment.
Yeah, DCE is going to come in and be the icing on the cake.
Yeah.
It's actually the premiership.
Yeah, so it won't be because of him. It'll be because of other recruitment and he'll play a small part in it.
Like when they signed Michael Jennings, James Maloney, and
Sonny Bill,
right?
2013, and they won the comp.
James Maloney was the DCE there. Okay, like if they had just signed James Maloney, they wouldn't have won the premiership. Other teams after the Roosters tried to just sign James Maloney and didn't win the premiership, right?
Although the Sharks did, but they had other great players as well. Like Ben Barber was on fire that year at fullback.
So it was like Sonny Bill who changed the culture and got everyone up. Michael Jennings who gave the strike, and James Maloney was the cream on top to help them get over the line. Mm-hmm. I think if they treat Daly Cherry-Evans like that and they sign like a big gun forward and an ultimate strike out the back, then Cherry-Evans will be the cream on top that gets them a premiership. But if they think they're going to sign Daly Cherry-Evans and he's going to be the main signing to give him a premiership, I don't think he's your guy. I just don't think. I think you can look at his history and see he's not the guy.
And then there's part of you that thinks, well, is it going to be worth it? And look, they can. That's the thing, because they've let so many players go. We talked about it was over 1,200 games of experience they've let go because they've let so many players go. Like Jared Waria-Hargreaves, Michael Jennings, Joey Manu, Joseph Suoli'i. I could go on and on. There's so many players they let go of. So they've freed up that space in the cap to get Cherry-Evans. But you sort of go, and I know we've talked about Walker's got this ACL, and we don't know how he's going to look when he comes back. But you got Walker at 22, you got Sandon Smith at 22, and Sandon Smith playing the way he did on Anzac Day against the Dragons. He's
a little inconsistent, but he has... The way he is right now is he has average games and exceptional games, and if they can get consistency out of him to be exceptional games, why would you keep him over Sam Walker? I mean, why wouldn't you keep him over Sam Walker, who's going to have to come back? Like, we're going to move on to Lachlan Ilias, right? Sam Walker can be in that kind of thing where he's coming back from an injury and 8 rounds into the next season, he's just barely a reserve grade player. Sam Walker was the $1 million man until he tore his ACL. Now he's a rebuild. Can Trent Robinson afford keeping a rebuild player? A player he has to rebuild, get back to consistency, get back to fitness, and so on and so forth. Always the risk of blowing the opposite ACL or the MCL in the same leg. So, I just think they'll end up keeping Sandon Smith and letting Sam Walker go. And Sam Walker will go and get big money in another place because there's no halves. And Dylan Brown's worth 1.3
Yeah, he will.
million.
If Dylan Brown gets 1.3 million, Sam Walker's going to get big money.
Yeah. So, as I said, they've dropped Lachlan Ilias now at the Dragons. They've got Lycan King Tongia, who's come in. Whether it's an improvement or not, you can't say, because right now at the Dragons they don't have halves. Their lower grade halves aren't setting the world on fire, but they have to do something.
Yeah, well, I think I might have mentioned it. Ilias and Kyle Flanagan, I don't think they'd get a gig at too many other NRL clubs.
They definitely wouldn't be a halves pairing, and they would only be. I think they'd only be paired with a $1 million man.
And is it
individually?
I got to say it here. How do you feel about I mean, Ilias is the one who falls on his sword.
Well, he's been the worst of the two.
Yeah.
Like, he actually has. Flanagan scored more tries, done more. Because
so it's not a case of...
I mean, there's obviously
is he just being left
nepotism.
there because...
Of course there's nepotism there, but Ilias was always going to be based on form, Ilias is the guy that has to go as well anyway.
Okay.
Man, their fifth tackle options are awful. They can't close out a game. They can't... All of their tries are coming off individual brilliance. And, for years the Dragons have been a team of individually brilliant players that couldn't play as a team. Now they look like they play as a team, but their halves can't do anything for them.
Okay, so
that's what they look like.
So you agree that they were right to dump Ilias and leave Flanagan there for now?
Yeah, I mean, if you're only dropping one, Ilias is the guy. Yeah.
And hard to drop 2 halves in 1 week. That's a lot of change.
They still have massive issues around the Cook and Little situation. Like when Little comes on the field, the Dragons just look 1,000 times better. No one played well against the Roosters, but Little tried the hardest. Cook just looks slow. Then they bring Little on the field, and suddenly the Dragons are getting better service out of the bottom half. Their defence is organised better. They're making more metres. They're scoring more tries. But it's not on the back of their halves. It's literally, you can watch it. It's on the back of Little, So they got a lot to do. You can't blame Flanagan. He's still got to build a whole team. Gutherson's old. He was never going to be the best signing of the year for.
It's funny. We had people saying a couple of weeks ago that he was the buy of the year, and now.
Well, one of the things about Gutherson that really frustrates the hell out of me, he's the most reffy complaining person in the entire league, and that's why I'm now on a thing of ref players shouldn't be allowed to talk to refs. It's because of him. Every single play, for or against, defence or attack, he's got to complain to the ref. He's constantly yelling at the touch judges, constantly yelling at the refs. He's just whiny. That's your captain there.
You've still got that other side of it where... And I've talked about it before, where, last year, Flanagan had a big falling out with Ben Hunt. Ben Hunt decided to leave, and now the team that Ben Hunt's gone to are flying. They've just knocked off the best team in the comp. Yeah. And now Flanagan's at war with his next halfback. He's just dumped him to reserve grade. And I get that Ilias has had... he all in all, he hasn't had a great start. He was that kick out on the full against Parramatta, which set up Lomax for that field goal to win the game. That really does stick out, if I'm being honest. But we have, Flanagan, Coach Flanagan, I'm talking about, Shane, he's got to start thinking about, well, am I with these players, or am I picking fights with my halfback, or am I on the same team as them?
You can't. They've got to play the Tigers this week, and it's like the Tigers are the favourites.
Yeah, very slightly they are. Yeah, am I allowed to say the prices? Yeah. So I'm just looking at it here. So the Tigers are with Sportsbet. The Tigers are $1.87. The Dragons are $1.97.
Yeah. But it's because the Dragons don't have a halfback. They've got not bagging King Tongia, but they don't have a halfback. Their 5'8" isn't that good. The best players on the field these days are Tyrell. So they're missing show me the money man. What's his name? Christian
Tuapolotu.
Yeah, they're missing him. It's good to see Corey Allen in, but they're missing Tuapolotu. Gutherson his main skill is whining at the refs, starting arguments with the refs. They got a lot of problems is basically it. And dropping Lachlan Ilias doesn't change much. Like Jack DeBellin was so close to about 18 hip drop tackles against the Roosters. I was surprised he didn't get sent off. Even little things like that, like the little 1% of things, he's skirting a really fine line on hip drops that make me worry. And so every player has that kind of. They still play as a team though. That's the thing, and they've got to let Shane Flanagan continue and build that team. He has only been there 2 years now. It's his second year.
Yeah, I think he started in 24. I'll double check that. Pretty sure started in 24.
And it took him 7 years to.
Yeah, he did start in 2024.
7 years to get the Sharks there.
Yeah, he needs time.
They need a massive team adjustment though. They really need a lot of players need to be moved on and changed, and then they need to get more disciplined. Their defence is shocking. Their discipline is woeful. And Lachlan Ilias is the only person they can drop.
But I guess at least with Ilias, because he wouldn't be on much money, at least he doesn't butcher your salary cap. Yeah. So you'd rather make a mistake on him not being on much money than on someone on huge money like Newcastle have clearly made with Dylan Brunner.
Exactly. In other team news, Des Hasler has dropped David Fifita.
Yes, for that game against the Bulldogs.
The best forward in the world.
Yeah, they've lost 4 games in a row, the Titans, and Fifita has paid the price for that. So Des Hasler, he doesn't muck around, Des, and he's moved on David Fifita here.
It's a little bit weird, yeah. You don't normally see the scapegoat is your back rower.
Well, that's the thing. As an opposing fan this week, Fifita would be a player that I'd be one of the few of their players I'd be worried about.
Yeah.
And they've just taken him out of the side. So that's what I don't understand about it is you got to do what your opposition don't want you to do. And I would have thought the Bulldogs would be looking at the team list going, oh, Fifita's not there. Well, and especially with the Bulldogs losing that manpower in the forwards, they've lost Curran and Tupanua.
Well, look, he is in the reserves, so maybe Des Hasler is playing
maybe he's playing games. Yeah, that's right. He still could be included at the last minute
but
here.
It's still a weird thing that, out of all the people, so their outs were now at this point outs that you would expect: Brock Gray and Jamin Jalifi, right? They're the guys that have been dropped now. It's coming up to.
I think Jolliffe got suspended. Yeah. I think Gray got suspended as well, but he's injured as well. Yeah.
And then tomorrow they'll firm who else they're dropping. But it is weird, right? It's just weird that Dave Fifita is the guy that is to blame when it's not AJ Brimson and over in the Dragons they're blaming Lachlan Ilias, or they dropped Lachlan Ilias. Over at the Titans trying to reverse fortunes, they're dropping one of their forwards.
But you are right. I mean, he is only on the reserves list. He could still be a last-minute inclusion. It could be Hasler just trying to put a rocket under him and going, look, you're not just a guaranteed selection every week. I can push you back to the reserves. Yeah. Probably just trying to put a bit of a spark under Fifita.
When you really think about it with Fifita, he's been one of those, like, they've paid overs for him. He hasn't performed. I mean, he hasn't.
He's an example He's an example of poor salary cap management, paying too much for someone who's not delivering
for too long as well. Yeah. And finally, with rugby league, Willie Mason said some complete nonsense about Tyson Gamble.
I can read you the quotes. They're pretty strong.
The quote is like, it's. Yeah, go.
So he said that, and I quote, that Tyson Gamble doesn't belong in first grade. He said, with Gamble, I know I've had my little tussle with him, but he doesn't belong in first grade. He says he is not a 7, he is a 14. He can't run that team. He says, you can't have Gamble and Fletcher Sharp as your halves. His kicking game is subpar. Everything is very, very average. He needs a lot of help around him. That's not the answer there. End quote. And we remember Gamble famously told Mason to get effed after the Knights won their elimination final over the Raiders in week 1 of the 2023 final series, and then the Knights were thrashed in week 2 of that final series, and Mason had to go back at Gamble.
It's funny though, because like he says, doesn't belong in first grade. He's a 14. You know, there's 17 players in the team. So, but he meant he's not. It's just the way he phrased it is really funny. That's what everyone's making fun of. Like, he's like, it doesn't belong in first grade. He belongs. I mean, he's a number 14. 14 is first grade. But he means he doesn't belong in first grade, and he's not a 7. At best, he's a bench utility in reserve grade. That's what Willie Mason means. It's a bit harsh when you really get into that. Like, he's saying that. Like, at best, he's a bench utility in reserve grade. That's harsh. That means you're a, like, basically fifth choice half for your team.
Yeah. But Willie Mason's on a podcast and he's entertaining. So that's the thing. You have to be entertaining. You have to get headlines if you're Willie Mason, and he's done that. There's too much.
Gamble responded,
especially on. I don't know if you ever watched the Sunday Footy Show, but it's just so boring. They never give strong opinions on anything. They just say everyone's great and everything's great. At least with Willie Mason, he gives a strong opinion, and you listen to what he's... I just read out all his quotes because they were interesting. I wouldn't be reading out all the quotes they make on the Sunday Footy Show. I can guarantee you that. If I did that, everybody would go to sleep and not listen to us.
Yeah. I don't think we've ever read out a Sunday Footy Show.
No. Why would you?
So that's it for Rugby League. Up the Dragons. Let's see if you can actually beat the Tigers. Sorry,
yes.
In other sports, the IPL is almost over. But there's this 14-year-old kid that debuted.
Yeah.
In his first ball, he hit a 6.
So that was on our rundown last week. We were going to talk about him, but then we had to do it quickly last week, and we didn't get a chance to talk about him. But he's since made the second fastest IPL century of all time. A 14-year-old, if you can believe it, made a century off 35 balls. It's just extraordinary. I'm going to have a go at pronouncing his name. It's Vaibhav Suryavanshi. There you go. I did my best.
Vaibhav Suryavanshi?
So well done to him.
Man, that's crazy.
Unbelievable. 14 years of age.
He even looks like a 14-year-old. You know, I see a lot of, like, kids at jiu-jitsu. I was, like, one of the kids that I coach in his last tournament. He's 15, so he was in juveniles under 16s, and one of the people he fought against was, like, a dude, a man, full beard, jacked and everything, but under 16, you know?
Yeah.
So you see a lot of kids today that are like 16 that are like full men. This kid looks like a little kid.
Yeah. He looks like a 14-year-old, right?
And he's smashing it. They're really happy with him, a star of the future. You don't really know though, because he's still growing.
Yeah.
And what can actually happen when you have these young kids is they have a lot of power when they're 14, but it doesn't mature into adult at the correct rate. So it's not like proportionate. So he can actually like become a 19-year-old or whatever and not have his muscles and everything haven't grown at the same rate or whatever. And so then he's a subpar 19-year-old. But, like it could be that he's got a future ahead of him forever, or it could be he fades away into obscurity in 2 years.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. 14 years of age.
It's I wish I was good at something at 14. He's probably on a $36,000 a year contract as well, because that's the thing with the IPL. Some of the minimum wage in the salary cap is like 12.9 million, something like that, and the minimum wage is $36,000 a year.
I've just looked him up. He was born on the 27th of March, 2011.
Oh,
so
far off.
So he's only just turned 14 as well.
Oh my god.
So I mean, geez, that makes you feel old, doesn't it? Someone born in 2011 is scoring the second fastest IPL 100 of all time.
I hate the fact that people are born in the 2000s, but now 2000.
Yeah, now someone born in 2011 is hitting 35 ball IPL centuries. Chris Gale has the fastest, by the way. He hit one in 30 balls. So, yeah, well done to... I won't try and say his name again, but well done. Great effort.
Over to tennis, and Max Purcell can't afford a lawyer.
Yeah, so Max Purcell gets an 18-month doping ban because he's not Yannick Sinner. Yannick Sinner can get a 3-month ban that falls conveniently between the Australian Open and the French Open. Which coincidentally is nearly about to end.
Did you see what his crime was?
Yeah. This ITIA. They're very consistent at the ITIA, aren't they? Purcell admitted to a breach of rules relating to the use of a prohibited method after unknowingly receiving an IV infusion of vitamins above the allowed limit of 100 millilitres in a 12-hour span, and entered into a provisional suspension in mid-December.
He said at the time he had told the clinic he was a professional athlete and that the infusion had to be less than 100 millilitres.
Yeah.
So he accidentally had too many vitamins and he's suspended for 18 months. Yannick Sinner accidentally takes steroids and he's suspended for whatever it was.
3 months.
Too confusing.
3 months a settlement. Yeah, 3 months.
Too confusing for me. His suspension will end June 11, 2026, taking into account time already served. This is a joke. What's Nick Kyrgios said about it?
Haven't heard a word.
Yeah, what's going on? Is his Twitter account suspended?
Yeah, I haven't heard a word out of Nick.
The
which
vitamin,
is very interesting.
IV vitamins thing is so it's such bullcrap, man. Like they're prohibited by the amount of IV vitamins they're allowed to take. Obviously, I'm not suggesting anyone do this, but if he went away and took whatever it was, just saying his 500 milliliter IV vitamin bag was 50,000 milligrams of vitamin C. If he went and took 50,000 milligrams of vitamin C in a tablet form, it'd be fine.
Yeah.
But because it's an IV bag, it's a suspension.
Yeah, and we also had 4-time French Open winner in the women's, Iga Swiatek, accepting a 1-month suspension last year. Yannick Sinner, a nice 3-month suspension. In the best time of year to have a 3-month suspension between the Australian Open and the French Open, where you don't miss any majors. So if you're a star player, it's nice and convenient, a month here or 3 months here. If you're Max Purcell, who's
But he's a doubles player.
He's not, obviously he's not one of the top players of the world. 18 months ban, see you later. But at least with Max Purcell, at least you go, all right, he'll do his time, and after that you'll go, yeah, he's served his time.
Yeah, absolutely.
With Yannick Sinner, that's not going to happen. Everyone will keep saying, this guy never had to do his time properly, and it's going to cloud all of his future achievements.
Yeah, he's the 12th ranked doubles player in the world, or not, was. He's a doubles player, so they don't care. That's what it is. He's a doubles player and he doesn't have hundreds of millions of dollars to hire a lawyer.
That's right. He won the men's doubles title at Wimbledon in 2022 and the US Open last year, but that doesn't buy you great lawyers, though.
No, exactly. He's only worth $5 million, so he couldn't afford the lawyer.
Yeah, well, and Yannick Sinner would have got the best lawyer in the world, or the best possible lawyer in his situation.
And also, for the first time in 1,000 years, Novak Djokovic has now lost his first match in back-to-back tournaments.
Yes. And yeah, so since he's gone onto the clay, he's had real trouble. Of course, he made that final of the Miami Masters, and we thought, well, he's not done yet. Since he's gone to the clay, lost his first match at the Monte Carlo Masters, lost his first match at the Madrid Open.
It's
That's three. So he's a 3-match losing streak. He's lost 3 matches in a row. Still going for that 100th tournament title. And he's already... he's not going to be playing in Rome either. Look, I think we're getting to a point where we go, why bother with the French Open now?
Yeah.
He's not started well on the clay. He's pulled out of Rome. What's he really going to do at the French Open this year? I think he's better off saving himself for the grass, Wimbledon. He's a much better chance. Obviously, in his situation, it's all about the majors now. I think he should just forget about the French Open at this point and just focus on Wimbledon. Maybe look at playing 1 or 2 of those lead-up events to Wimbledon and putting all the eggs into one basket at Wimbledon here. I think he's got to be realistic at the age of 37.
and then finish up, you know?
Well, I think you're looking at retire after the US Open.
Yeah, then finish up for the year, like, that's it, and to be done.
And then that's it. I wouldn't be coming back to the Australian Open next year now. Because we're so close to the French and Wimbledon and the US Open, may as well go to the end of the US Open. But I think now we're looking at retirement after the US Open.
Just go and play all your charity matches and stuff, brother. That's it for the week. Let's see what happens over the weekend with the Magic Round in Rugby League. And don't forget to get all your CBD from OptimumCBD.store. Orders over $99. Get free delivery. You must be over 18 to order. Follow at SmartB app on all the social medias. Play Smart Play. Win real money. Jump into the tipping comps. Even if you won't be able to win the end of the year, you can win the $100 each week, which somebody different has won every week. And try and beat Mitchell, Pearce, and myself and Dan to win yourself $10,000, but it's a bit late now. You're a third of the way through the season. So I don't think anyone's jumping in and winning.
It might be a bit late to join.
But you can win the $100. Somebody who won 2 weeks ago has only been playing for 2 weeks. So, you can win the $100. It's just
there you go. So you can still win $100
for that round. So, there's plenty of rounds left to win the $100.
So there's round by round incentives here.
And you also win smart coins. Top 20 players, top 20 tipsters of each round win smart coins that they can play in Smart Play game-based daily fantasy sports and win real cash prizes. See you next week, Dan.
Thanks, Sean. See you next week, mate.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Producer Chairs.